Before you watch, I have to note that this video contains spoilers for the entirety of part 3 of JoJo as well as a bit of the other ones. And if you haven't seen anything of JoJo at all yet, then stop watching too and start already, because it is great. Oh, and because this video requires you have seen Stardust Crusaders in its entirety, because I will not be explaining anything. Last chance, 3, 2, 1, 0. At this point, it should come to absolutely no one's surprise that I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. How could I not? It's one of the most interesting, unique and, well, bizarre anime I've ever watched. Not exactly the best, but certainly one of the most enjoyable. So far, my absolutely favorite part out of all of them has got to be part 3 Stardust Crusaders. It's the only one, in my opinion, that feels like an actual bizarre adventure. The protagonists wander from A to B, meet new enemies, see new sights and encounter new stands. But you know, it's really not at all that perfect. There's just some things that really bothered me. Some problems that I think would make the entire story a lot better if they were removed or improved upon. Don't get me wrong, I still love it to bits and I'm happy with what we got, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be better in my opinion. So if you're someone who considers part 3 to have no flaws at all, or who at least likes it exactly as it is, you might as well turn off the video. Thank you for at least giving it a shot, but you will not end up enjoying it. Because my suggestions in this video affect major plot elements and change almost the entire story. If you still want to keep watching, just don't complain about me restructuring certain parts, because that is the entire point of this video. After all, this is my own take on the story and it doesn't detract from the original in any way. Furthermore, I don't care if anything I say affects any parts after this one, or if things that happen in part 3 get relevant in later parts, because quite frankly, every part needs to be able to stand on its own. If a movie, for example, has some glaring issues and its sequel resolves these issues, that doesn't make the first movie any better because the issues are still there. The same goes for the manga. I don't care if anything gets explained in there but not in the anime, because both the manga and the anime are two different pieces of media that also need to be able to stand on their own separately. So I will only be taking the anime adaptation of Stardust Crusaders into consideration and nothing else. Alright, what problems did I have with part 3? Well, there's 3 main ones. First and foremost, a lot of character deaths were only temporary. Usually in media, deaths are permanent. If a character dies, you will never ever see them again. Yet some types of media love to resurrect characters, which I assume is because they want the thrill and weight of having a character die, yet at the same time they don't want to lose that character either. But you can have your cake and eat it too, because if you do that, it really cheapens the death and makes it pretty much meaningless as a result. Sadly though, part 3 is full of this and it really makes a lot of battles lose tension because the Crusaders essentially have plot armor. That in return makes it harder to get invested at times, because why care? The good guys are always going to win anyway, they're not in any mortal danger even if they act like they are. Only near the end do deaths become more meaningful because characters stay dead. I suppose because they just weren't needed for the story anymore. Similarly, and my second main problem, is that certain enemies were just not threatening because they couldn't actually kill or even harm the main characters. Even if the Crusaders get stabbed, bitten, have their limbs broken, all of these injuries just vanish in the next episode. I know they're supposed to basically be superhumans, but you can't act like they're in so much danger when we know they're going to be alright anyway. This is also a reason why I think Superman as a character is uninteresting, because he's invulnerable and therefore never really has to overcome any deadly obstacles. And finally, my last issue is that certain characters were very one-sided and uninteresting as a result, because they never got that much backstory or individual episodes with just them and no one else. The 2 biggest offenders in this case are Abdul and Kakyoin, but I'll get more into that later. Another missed opportunity is that certain characters never got a chance to team up together. So while they sometimes act like best buddies, we never really see a reason for that. The goal with my suggestions is to negate these problems. I know I'm talking about this like I want to balance a game, which becomes very obvious if you see my other videos. Treat it more as a creative exercise, a what-if scenario if you will. This video is just how I would have designed the series after all. I'm going to go through this mostly chronologically, so here we go. Let's start off with Abdul, because he's one of those characters with the most potential, yet who was barely explored. Most of the time he only stood in the background, commenting on everything, a JoJo tradition which everyone else also does. However, Abdul was one of the only characters to not get an episode to just himself, the other one being Kakyoin. Even the dog got more episodes than him, a 2-parter in fact. Considering what an expert on stands he seems to be and how important he is to Joseph, it would have been really interesting to see him take on a stand user alone with the knowledge that he has. Maybe he would have realized that he doesn't actually know as much as he thought he did. Or he could have used his fortune-telling abilities. Yeah, remember that? Fighting alongside Joseph against Busted and Maria was great because it showed their relationship, but I wanted to see more of how Abdul fights by himself. However, I think he should have definitely died to a whole horse in India. The reason for that is to not just give his death importance and show the actual dangers of the journey for the first time, but also because he didn't really do anything after he came back. He still mostly only stood in the back except for his episode with Joseph. I'm actually somewhat torn on this. On one hand, if he dies sooner, he won't get his moments together with Joseph. But on the other hand, it would cheapen his death if he was still around. I think I'm leaning more towards letting him die a dignified death by sacrificing himself for Polnareff, because it would give him more character development. What I mean by that is that the episode with Judgment could have been about the Crusaders actually meeting Abdul's father and not Abdul in disguise. Polnareff would have then had to come to terms with Abdul's death after realizing that even if he wishes for him to come back, like his sister, he can't and he won't. Afterwards, he would have had to actually talk to Abdul's father and explain to him why his son died, and then apologizing for it, after which the father could have either forgiven him or not. That, in my opinion, would have been much better character development because it mainly means that Polnareff didn't feel guilty for absolutely no reason. Polnareff's guilt because of Abdul is one of his defining character arcs, and it's also why I think Abdul should have kept his Ankh scars from the first battle with him. It would be a constant reminder to Polnareff what his short-sightedness resulted in, as well as showing the viewers just how powerful the Stardust Crusaders can be. Similarly, lovers should have made Joseph weaker, like by making him not be able to react fast enough, twitch uncontrollably, forget things, not be able to control his mechanical hand, etc. It would have shown his mortality, he is very old at that point, and lovers did attack his brain after all. It would have made the viewer think, wow, he might really not be able to hold out for much longer. Furthermore, it would have also shown just how close Jotaro was to losing his grandfather. Next up is Horace, who should have definitely joined the Crusaders after saving Polnareff from justice. It would have fit perfectly because we've seen him wanting to betray Dio and because Enya wanted to kill him as well. After which he probably felt out of place with Dio and more welcome with the Crusaders. Afterwards he could have taken on the role of Abdul, which would have made the Busted episode much more interesting, like his stand-up working correctly because of the magnetism, if that's even a thing. Plus, it would have brought him closer to the others, literally in Joseph's case. Polnareff, on the other hand, wouldn't have forgiven him, because he's still responsible for Abdul's death. Furthermore, Horace would have then gotten cold feet before entering Dio's mansion and left the group, because he knows what will happen to him after betraying Dio. However, he could have still changed his mind and rushed in after them, saving Polnareff and Iggy just in time from Cream, taking Abdul's place for the last time. This would have gained him respect on Polnareff's part, who would then have finally forgiven him. Moving on to Polnareff, he should have kept his soul in his tongue from his battle against Justice. Just a small thing, nothing threatening in this case, but it would have shown that he got away just in time. Likewise, Horace should have kept his injuries from the same battle as well, and walked with a slight limp or something similar. Going back to Polnareff, who should have really died to Cream. After finishing part 3, I was completely torn what I found more impactful. Iggy sacrificing himself for Polnareff, or Polnareff realizing that life just isn't fair sometimes and dying. In the end I opted for the latter because it was the only time during the entire anime that I genuinely cried. He's not sacrificing himself for anyone, just dying as a weak man, unable to keep going, having lost to a stronger foe. That to me is much more important than getting saved in the last second. Maybe it could have been also Polnareff who sacrificed himself for Iggy by pushing him out of Cream's way before realizing that he just put himself in danger instead, but I'm actually not too sure about that. What matters is his death, especially because afterwards he didn't really accomplish much anyway. Except for perhaps surprising and distracting Dio, but that could have been easily rewritten. He shouldn't even have been able to do anything after the battle, because it's not possible that he had that much trouble getting out of Cream's way in one episode and then jump out of a window unharmed in the next one. Either way, he should have died. In fact, it should have been Iggy who defeated Vanilla Ice with one final blow after he left his guard down upon realizing he just killed Polnareff. It would have been really good revenge for what he did to his friend and for almost kicking him to death. Afterwards, Iggy would have seen Polnareff's spirit escape instead of Polnareff seeing Iggy's and Abdul's. Then he would have met up with the rest of the gang, but immediately died after they realized just what happened to him and Polnareff. Just a side note, Iggy keeping his injury from his battle with Pet Shop was amazing and was exactly what I wanted to see more of. Next up in the list is the MILF Hunter Kakyoin. His death was almost perfect in my opinion. He got turned into a donut after getting surprised by Dio showing his true power, yet still tried to help his friends with one last emerald splash before he passed away. That's great, keep that, nothing to improve there. However, he should have also been given his backstory way sooner, or rather not literally 5 minutes before he died. It just telegraphed his death too much and didn't even help characterize him properly. Plus, he should have been really given an episode together with JoJo, considering he was supposed to be his show bro, which never really worked in my opinion. The episode with Rubber Soul didn't count, however, considering it wasn't the real Kakyoin. It would have also been cool if the reason for his demise was his eyesight not having fully improved after his very short battle with Duel. That could have also resulted in him suffering more attacks fighting Dio during the car chase because he just couldn't see that well. Again, a way to show how powerful the Crusaders' enemies are by leaving plot-affecting scars. And now, the man of the hour, Joseph. Man, I love that old fool, flawed as he is. However, he should have actually died to Dio's knife. Powerless, urging Jotaro to run away because he's fighting an enemy that's too powerful for him to even imagine. And those words mean a lot, considering this is the same man that fought a literal Übermensch by throwing him into space. It would have also shown just how old he's gotten and how outdated he really is. He isn't the young hip Joseph anymore who can use the ripple to defeat any foe, he's much weaker and slower. Definitely too slow for Time Freeze. It would have also made the spirit scene way more emotional too, or rather not pointless, because it actually means something and he didn't just, come back later. How does it even work? The spirit escaped the body, but he could still live afterwards? Makes no sense. Anyway, like many of the other characters, he didn't really play a large role after coming back from death. Not even in part 4, where the only thing he did was bonding with Josuke and winning his trust and adopting a baby, neither of which actually went anywhere. And even if every part needs to be able to stand on its own, the larger story only matters after the individual stories actually make sense. So in the end, only Jotaro would have survived the fight and eventually defeat Dio. Like the intros hinted at, only Star Platinum would be the final victor. It would only make sense for him to be the only one to survive, because even Fate itself agrees that he's the only one good enough to defeat Dio. Furthermore, and this is actually what inspired me to write this video, it would mirror the last scene from the second outro. The scene in which Jotaro is standing in the sand, looking at the sky, perhaps at everyone else's spirits saying goodbye for the last time, eventually walking away and leaving only the photo behind. The only thing he can take home from his adventure, yet ironically the only thing he leaves behind in the sense of time. Thanks for watching this video. I know it's a little bit different from my usual stuff. But hey, I didn't even mention TF2 once. No, wait. Anyway, let me know if you like it or not. And if you're new to my channel, then please let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. But before I go, let me quickly thank my patrons, specifically One True Bar, Alexis Chavez, Daddy Bob, Dr. TNT, Frozen Spaghetti, Golden Sliff, Mac Cannabis, Oleg Andrav, Ren Marty, Timba P, Zachary Leclerc, and as always, Xenomite. Thanks for your support. If you want to support me too, you can also become a patron, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, leave a like, perhaps even subscribe, or do whatever you want. I appreciate all the support I get. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, have a wonderful day, and goodbye.